Well, it happened again. First it was my decline of the MCU video, and now this. 3 weeks of YouTube's own algorithm saying this video was perfectly advertiser friendly, only to, out of nowhere mind you, pull the rug out from underneath and demonetize the video in an attempt to bury it. Apologies, I'll make this as quick as I can, but some of you may be confused about the re-upload. Why am I bringing this up? Well, long story short, if a video gets demonetized, it means it doesn't make any ad revenue, hence YouTube's algorithm essentially turns the video into a paperweight that plummets in viewership, because, well, why would they recommend a video they actively don't want to profit off of? And so the video goes nowhere. It's a quiet and subtle way of censoring the video by preventing it from being seen by a wider audience. Its appeal was also rejected for reasons. Apparently I can't use a certain 4-letter C word despite the fact I'm Australian, and thus it's an integral part of our lovely vocabulary. See, now that's real discrimination right there. Anyway, that's the reason for the re-upload. The video has a nice clean slate, which has once again been advertiser approved by YouTube's own algorithm. Well, for as long as that's going to last, let's just wait and see. But once again, another glowing endorsement. YouTube hates this video, which means you are no doubt going to love it. And once again, have fun. We have lived through the walking nightmares of Rey Skywalker, Rose Tico, L337, and Admiral Holdo. So the fact that Disney managed to make another terrible strong female character that was substantially worse than each of the failed abortions I just mentioned is absolutely mind-boggling. We can always count on Darth Mickey fucking Mouse to come up with terrible Star Wars fan fictions to shove in our face, hoping something will make a buck and actually stick for once. In actuality, all they had to do was create a Yoda ripoff, base an entire show around him, and call it The Mandalorian. But it's rare to see Disney Lucasfilm manage to outdo their worst, because, well, when you look at the fecal matter that's left their rectal passage over the past decade, it really can't get much worse, can it?
Unless...
The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist!
Yet somehow Disney Punasfilm, Darth Kennedy, and Pablo Hill Dumbo managed to give us the worst Star Wars character to date, and that is none other than Obi Wan Kenobi's Reva, the third sister of the Inquisitors, whose character is complete and utter garbage, and hopefully the bottom of the barrel at this point. Now, a lot of you are likely going to disagree with this to some extent, not because you like Reva, understand, but because you have an insatiable and justifiable hatred for several of the other characters I previously mentioned, and I can absolutely understand why. More power to you. After all, I live down under, not under a rock. But that said, I was already planning to make this video when I decided to put out this poll just to gauge what its general reception might be. And the results were interesting to say the least.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
So yeah, while a lot of you disagreed for various reasons, and although I'm hoping to change that for the most of you by the end of this video, the feedback was very interesting, and I can always count on you guys for entertaining responses, so thank you to everyone who participated in that poll. But let's get back on point. Now, before I go any further, there are some people who are no doubt wondering why I haven't as of yet addressed the Jar Jar in the room. Jar Jar Binks was still the worst character. Why haven't you included Jar Jar Binks yet? Let me stop you right there. And because most of the internet is too much of a pseudo-intellectual pussy to tell you straight, I'll do it. Simply put, there's nothing wrong with Jar Jar. Newsflash! Jar Jar Binks was a cartoon rabbit who was designed specifically to be a clumsy, slapstick amusement character for the child demographic, which was the core audience George Lucas was targeting with his movies first and foremost. That doesn't equate to a bad character in any way, shape, or form. I don't give a shit if he annoyed you or not. He made the kids laugh in the theaters, which is what he was designed to do, and if you're supposed to be the adult, how about you grow some fucking tolerance? I mean, Jar Jar was based on Goofy for God's sake, and actually contributed to helping out the characters as well as progressing the plot in a meaningful way for the entire prequel trilogy.
The stories were meant for kids. I mean, have you met a kid who really hates Jar Jar Binks? I have.
hates him a lot.
How much of your influence did you give to him while the entire time you were watching the movie? Doesn't he suck? Doesn't he suck? And your little cousin was like,
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
he walk up. No kid has ever walked up to me and said, "You're cool, Jar Jar sucks." Your cousin, I leave it for. I leave it for.
He's only 9.
Okay, I'm sure he's heavily influenced by the adults around him.
A cartoon character aimed at children is supposedly the worst character in Star Wars. Moving on. Now, if you're wondering why in my opening monologue I haven't bothered mentioning anyone from the Book of Boba Fett, well, it's because, quite frankly, I haven't fucking bothered to watch the Book of fucking Boba Fett. And from what I've heard, that's been a very good decision because I heard it was mostly trash and wasn't even really about Boba Fett. More like an extended advertisement for the Ahsoka series in Mandalorian Season 3 that featured Boba Fett. But here's the thing, I never really gave that much of a shit about Boba Fett to begin with. I was absolutely more of a Jango Fett kind of guy because, you know, Jango Fett actually did stuff instead of just being an Uber driver disguised as a bounty hunter that fans nutted over because he had a bucket on his head. But much like the Book of Boba Fett, Obi Wan Kenobi isn't really even about Obi Wan Kenobi primarily. It's about Reva. Obi-Wan is featured in this show that revolves all around a character that no one's ever heard of nor wanted because she never existed. But hey, it's not like they could have made an Inquisitor show starring Moses Ingram titled as Reva the Third Sister because no one would have fucking watched that garbage, would they? No offense to the actor, she's only doing what she's told, but sorry hun, in Disney's eyes, you know, the company that supposedly cares so much about representation and inclusivity, in their eyes, you just don't sell tickets. Or prolonged Disney Plus subscriptions for that matter. Unless you're attached to a project headlined by a legacy character that everyone does like. And as a matter of fact, I spoke about this current trend in my Decline of the MCU video regarding Marvel's Phase 4, otherwise known as the MCU. I recommend you give it a watch because it covers a lot of similar ground to this video. But this is a trend that Disney and all its subsidiaries are currently obsessed with to force their politically driven character inserts into beloved intellectual properties that they've acquired via means of attaching it to another popular well-known character. And I call this trend the tagalong trope. Attaching a dead-on-arrival character used for some political activist's wet dream, who for some reason was hired for a role where her job was to write and establish characters, but of course they don't know how, so they attach them, or rather force them, no pun intended, into projects where they are attached to another character people actually do like, clinging to the hope that maybe, just maybe, the popularity of well-written characters might rub off on the failed abortion they ejaculated out of their pens and keyboards onto our television screen.
The easiest way to be popular is to leech off the popularity of others. So we propose changing our name from Springfield to Seinfeld.
Quite simply put, Reva should not exist, especially in this show that shouldn't fucking exist. Her existence is not the will of the Force, like Anakin's was. She just simply exists by the forced will of idiots from Lucasfilm. So let's get into why Reva is so terrible and my pick for the worst character in all of Star Wars, or in this case, Star Wars fanfiction. At least any pertaining to what Disney has created. We'll start with the big stuff first. Reva's origin story and motivations that make no sense and is extremely contradictory to the character that Disney Lucasfilm had presented to us. We learn that Reva was indeed a youngling who somehow managed to survive Order 66, we'll get to that, but as many of us could predict, it doesn't show us how. Instead, it shows us that Reva knew Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker because she watched Anakin slaughter every man, woman, and child inside the Jedi Temple, coming face to face with Reva, a helpless Jedi youngling at the time. These two were fucking face to face, eye to eye with each other, and were just expected to believe that Darth Vader just closed his eyes and counted to 20 or something so that Reva could hide? We don't really know because it just cuts away, and Reva tells Obi-Wan that she got away and played dead among the bodies like she was hiding from a rogue gunman. Until the 501st Troopers and Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, mind you, simply didn't notice her and just passed her by.
We thought he was there to help us. I tried to help them, but I couldn't. I was too weak. When he left, I played dead, hid with the bodies, felt them go cold. They were the only family I knew. And he slaughtered them.
Yeah, here's why this origin story sucks. The difference between a rogue gunman and Anakin Skywalker, the rogue gunman can't sense you with the fucking Force. And Anakin has the highest midichlorian count of any known Jedi, and is the most Force-sensitive Jedi to have ever lived, supposedly. Disney, do you think we are that fucking stupid or something? There is no chance Anakin didn't sense her. You could have put Reva on a distant planet like Kanan was in the Bad Batch and gave her a more plausible chance to escape Order 66, away from one of the most powerful Jedi turned Sith in existence. But nah, this is an Obi-Wan show, and she's gotta have this ultra-deep, super important, and contrived plot relevance to justify to the fans why this character abortion takes center stage in an Obi-Wan show.
Lord Vader will be pleased. You didn't know. He's alive, Obi-Wan. Anakin Skywalker is alive.
You knew who Vader was. Back on Daiu, how did you know that? Vader would have kept that hidden. And you're too young to have known him. Unless you were there.
But I'm not done. All throughout the Obi Wan Kenobi show, Lucasfilm very intentionally teased a supposedly interesting backstory that would explain why Reva has a giant hate taco for Kenobi, which for most of us, hell, all of us with a functioning brain, this was never going to add up well once we received the missing pieces to the puzzle, and boy howdy were we right on the fucking money with that one. Because Reva hates Obi Wan Kenobi because he was the one who trained Anakin Skywalker. That's the reason. And she also apparently hates him because he was nowhere to be found when Anakin and the 501st stormed the Jedi Temple, and her ultimate goal for killing or capturing Obi-Wan was to gain the favor of Darth Vader so she can get close enough to kill him and take her revenge.
Where were you while he was killing my friends? He was your Padawan. Why didn't you stop him? Why didn't you save us?
Now, I'll come back to this because her reasons for hating Obi-Wan are so fucking stupid on these grounds because of how much the show loves to allow Reva to know things that she couldn't possibly know. Unless, of course, it goes against their plot and she all of a sudden knows nothing. But then again, at the same time, Reva, this terrible fucking character, and is also a gigantic fucking idiot. Something else I'll get back to later on. But back to Reva's origin story, her twist is that she hates Vader and wants him dead. Predictably, Disney wants to turn their diversity hire villain into a sympathetic protagonist after writing her to be an irredeemable character. Not only was this not set up by Reva's actions in the slightest, but for someone who supposedly is so scarred by the events of Order 66 who wants to take revenge on Darth Vader, she has been the most aggressive, vile, despicable, heinous, and murderous Inquisitor, more so than any other, including the Grand Inquisitor. Lucasfilm, you went out of your way to make Reva the most heartless, disgusting, cruel, and non-empathetic character you could because you wanted the audience to despise her. Which we did, but not for the reasons you intended, because instead of creating a menacing villain, all you made was an annoying, bratty cartoon caricature of what a menacing villain is supposed to be.
Be rewarded well.
Or you'll be punished.
Reva!
Hands go first. Tell me where the Jedi is, or this man and his family die. You can't find Obi-Wan. You can't escape him. We will find you. We will destroy you.
Seriously, did you guys learn nothing from Kylo? But then at the last second, you pull the rug out from under us to try to tell us that she's been after revenge on the Empire and Darth Vader this whole time? Why the fuck would a surviving youngling of Order 66 who wants to get revenge on the people who destroyed her life, why would she cut off a woman's hand, maiming her for life without being ordered to, try to kill a Jedi without being told to, and explicitly after the Grand Inquisitor wanted to interrogate him so that they could potentially find the person that she is trying to locate in the first place, which is Kenobi?
Prepare him for interrogation.
You'll never find us all.
Why would she destroy the life of a child around the same age she was during Order 66 by having her kidnapped by thugs, threaten to kill Owen and his family without being ordered to?
Tell me where the Jedi is, or this man and his family
because for reasons she thinks he might know where a fucking Jedi is, because like I said, Reva just knows things until she doesn't. And why would she hate the Jedi Order at all because one Jedi Master's apprentice turned against the Order and killed every single Jedi in the temple, or so we fucking thought? How are the Jedi the enemy or the ones to blame from her perspective when they were the ones being fucking genocided, you dumbass?
The Jedi are cowards. They failed you, abandoned you. There is no point in protecting them. They would not do the same for you.
Wow.
To be a moron.
Yeah.
To be moronical.
Exactly. To be a moron.
An imbecile.
Yeah.
Like the dumbest motherfucker that ever lived.
She's more evil than all the Inquisitors, and without any setup whatsoever, you want us to buy that she's been trying to undermine Vader this whole time? And that she hasn't just been some mass-murdering psychopath for this entire show? Bullshit! This would have made some sense if Reva had shown some restraint throughout the show, carrying out these dark deeds under orders from her superiors, perhaps. You know, the very philosophy of order and the chain of command that the Empire is based on. But because you wanted her to be this smug, strong, don't take no crap from no man, politically pandering, bratty little bitch, it doesn't work, Lucasfilm. And you basically just pull a Daenerys Targaryen by completely flipping the fucking character with virtually no setup whenever and wherever it is needed by the plot. Hell, that's actually insulting to Season 8 of Game of Thrones, because even Daenerys Targaryen had more setup for losing her fucking mind than Reva had for turning out to be a sympathetic character who wants revenge on Vader. And then in the final episode, after Vader impales her with a fucking lightsaber through the midsection, she somehow teleports across the galaxy, somehow, after surviving a lightsaber through the chest without any medical attention whatsoever, somehow goes straight for the Lars homestead because she knows Owen is harboring a Jedi child. Somehow, she almost kills Owen and Beru, but she's utterly incompetent, so she doesn't. I'll get back to that later on. She then chases a helpless young Luke Skywalker into the Dune Sea, and then, after all her hardcore pro-Empire and anti-Jedi evil deeds, and as an admission of guilt that this should have been set up far earlier in the show by Disney Lucasfilm themselves, when Reva has Luke Skywalker unconscious at her mercy, Reva can't go through with killing Luke Skywalker because A, canon exists, B, the plot, the shittily written fucking plot, and C, she doesn't want to turn into Darth Vader by killing Jedi anymore, and she sees herself in Luke. You ridiculous moron. As if you only realize this now, after years of doing exactly that, hunting down Jedi, killing Jedi, working for the Empire that tore down your home and slaughtered your master and youngling friends and everything you grew up to believe in. You only realize that you're basically doing exactly what Vader is doing now? As if anyone with a functioning fucking brain would believe that. The only way I can believe that Reva would fucking come to this realization is if she's just that goddamn stupid. But I've saved an entire section of this video dedicated to that. Back on point, Reva carries Luke Skywalker back to the Lars homestead, where she's greeted by Obi Wan and the couple she just tried to murder, and everything's just hunky fucking dory. But then, the show has the fucking nerve to have Reva drop to her knees and start breaking down, practically begging for you to feel even the tiniest bit of sympathy for her, and it's nowhere to be found because this character's sub-story is a bad joke, and both its setup and its execution were fucking abysmal. Get this chick a spin-off series. Awful, terrible, fucking nonsensical. This character makes no sense and is impossible to take seriously from both a meta and an in-universe standpoint. So let's discuss some of her other fine qualities, shall we? Next up, Reva makes the Empire look stupid. Reva is the third sister of the Inquisitors, meaning she's relatively high up on the chain of command. Hell, the fact that it's her and the fifth brother that personally accompany the Grand Inquisitor should demonstrate that. However, this is despite the fact that she is completely and unapologetically insubordinate, despite the Empire's entire premise being built on law and order.
Your ability gave you station, but all the power in the world can't mask the stench beneath.
She constantly undermines the Grand Inquisitor and the others when she's being explicitly ordered to follow the Empire's guidelines, instead opting to kidnap a senator's daughter to lure out a Jedi she has no idea is even still alive.
You would kidnap an Imperial Senator's child?
We've done worse.
You have no right.
Hell, she even attempts to kill her superior officer, which is the only reason Kenobi is able to escape in the first place. Now granted, she covers it up, and it later comes back to bite her in the ass, but Christ, this bitch should have been fired or killed long before that was able to happen. Anyway, let's move on to the next reason why Reva is so terrible. Reva is a character who talks as if she's read the script and watched the movies. Now granted, this is a problem with several characters in the Kenobi show.
When the time comes, he must be trained.
Like you trained his father? Anakin is dead, and I won't let you make the same mistake twice.
What about the people that need us? What about the fight?
The fight is done. We lost.
What happened to you? You were once a great Jedi.
I can't imagine Obi Wan Kenobi doing anything wrong.
Your body's not the only thing that needs to heal, Ben. The past is a hard thing to forget, and you just need time, that's all.
And Reva is no exception.
You sure he's gonna come?
He fought beside her father during the war. He'll come.
General Kenobi, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars. Now he begs you to help him in his struggle against the Empire.
It's the very reason why she knows things she can't possibly know. Like Obi-Wan's friendship with Bail Organa, which she became aware of somehow by reading it up in the Jedi archives of all places.
I found a link between him and Organa in the archives.
I used the girl as bait.
Which is bullshit on two levels, those being A, why the fuck would that be in the Jedi archives, which are presumably meant to contain ancient wisdom, because they are archives, not dossier profiles on active Jedi and their known associates. I'm pretty sure if that would be anywhere, it would be in the Empire archives, since they were the ones hunting down the Jedi. And B, if this was possible and just so fucking easy to lure out Kenobi, don't you think Vader himself would have done it by now?
The Grand Inquisitor was right. You still want Kenobi, but he's gone, and you won't find him. We spent the last 10 years looking for him.
I found a link between him and Organa in the archives.
I used the girl as bait.
No! Dude! No f***ing way!
Amazing. You guys had access to this treasure trove of plot-convenient information for 10 years, and it took you 10 years to figure out, hey, Bail and Obi-Wan were good friends. Let's try to exploit that. And now, granted that you've done it before, anytime you want to lure out Kenobi, all you gotta do is kidnap Princess Leia. Hell, it was pretty easy the first time. What's to stop you from trying it another 100 times? Also, Reva's entire reasoning for why she's mad at Obi-Wan is that Obi-Wan failed to stop Vader when he purged the Jedi Temple and was nowhere to be found. As I said, Reva talks as if she's read the script, like when she calls Darth Vader by his real name, Anakin Skywalker. That was meant to be a closely guarded secret.
Lord Vader will be pleased. You didn't know. He's alive, Obi-Wan.
Anakin Skywalker is alive.
And as I previously discussed, it's revealed that she found out through extremely nonsensical and contrived means. But Reva read the script. She knows Obi-Wan's friendship with Bail Organa in intricate detail. She knows Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader in intricate detail. She also knows that it's Owen Lars who is harboring a Jedi child. A man that she briefly interacted with in the first episode because, like I said, she's read the script.
What's your name?
Owen.
Wife? Kids?
My family's of no concern to you.
They might be. You got a Jedi on that farm too?
No.
Why should I believe you?
But then, of course, later on, she's just handed that information in the most contrived fucking way when this bumbling death of comedy drops a communicator, which is basically Bail saying, hey, Obi-Wan, I'm worried you might be captured. I'm gonna go to Tatooine. You know Tatooine, to help that boy you're safeguarding, who a guy called Owen is taking care of? Yeah, you know that boy that you're supposed to be guarding? I hope the bad guys aren't listening in on this. Yeah, hope you're well, Obi-Wan. I'm gonna go do that.
If he's learned of the children, well, then Tatooine, Owen, help the boy.
What's your name?
Owen. My family's of no concern to you.
They might be. You got a Jedi on that farm, too?
God fucking damn it!
But my point is, Reva is privy to all this information for the sake of this dumbass plot, and so my question is, how the fuck did she not know Obi-Wan was sent to Utapau on a mission during Order 66? She doesn't have to know the nature of the mission, understand, but wouldn't that be in the Jedi archives too, if it was so easy for her to figure out Obi-Wan's history with Bail Organa? Hell, what did the Empire records detail that Kenobi was on Utapau during Order 66? Given how it's the Empire that are trying to track down and kill the Jedi, and how the fuck wouldn't she know that it was Obi Wan Kenobi, Anakin's own master, that maimed him to the point where his life became dependent on that suit of his?
Where were you while he was killing my friends? He was your Padawan. Why didn't you stop him? Why didn't you save us?
Again, I think it's bullshit that she knows that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker, but given that they would be searching for Kenobi, wouldn't it say that Kenobi's last whereabouts was on Mustafar after the battle he had with Darth Vader? No mention of Anakin Skywalker, but the fact that Obi-Wan fought Darth Vader on Mustafar. If she knows all these other details through all these fucking contrived means, and just because the script dictates it to be so, then this other stuff shouldn't have been too hard to figure out either. The only reason she doesn't know is because the scriptwriters were desperately trying to find a way to tie her story in with Obi-Wan's so that she would have some relevance in order to advertise for her own spin-off series. And to do that, they had to give her this ginormous hate taco for Obi-Wan, no matter how stupid it fucking sounds. Now we come to the next big problem with Reva. She's a rip-off character. Yep. Believe it or not, for those of you oblivious to this, Reva's character has been done before and done better. Throughout the Kenobi series, they called Reva the third sister.
Third sister! I can stand the reek of your ambition no longer.
Want to care to guess why they didn't call her the second sister of the Inquisitors? Because that title belonged to Trilla from Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, a video game that abides by Disney's own Star Wars fanfiction canon, but was not actually made by Disney. Instead, it was made by the mostly excellent Respawn Entertainment, features Cal Kestis as the protagonist, and had Trilla, aka the second sister, as the main antagonist. Trilla was a Jedi apprentice who also grew up to hate the Jedi after her master was presumed to have abandoned her during Order 66, before she was captured and taken into Darth Vader's Inquisition, tortured and trained in the dark side, becoming the second sister. Trilla, like Reva, is also a POC character, but unlike Reva, her character is actually believable. She is a menacing, ruthless Jedi hunter who is intimidating, who isn't cartoonish, and who isn't an insufferable brat. And most importantly, unlike Reva, you actually get to see and understand why Trilla hates the Jedi, why she became an Inquisitor, why she's turned to the dark side. Because as the story goes along, you get to see the mystery behind her character unravel in a manner that makes sense and allows you to A, relate to the character, and B, actually warrant sympathy for her. And spoilers, there actually is a transition for her to reconcile with her Jedi past, well, at least until Darth Vader shows up, and unlike with Reva, kills Trilla, the second sister, without a moment's hesitation because she failed him.
You have failed me, Inquisitor.
Avenge us!
Because as you know, that's what, Darth Vader always does when his victim doesn't have unforgivable plot armor.
You were born what defeat would bring. I will tolerate your weakness no longer.
I put a tracker on the ship.
Anybody else's bullshit detector just go off?
It seems I have underestimated you.
More on that soon. But the biggest difference between Trilla and Reva is that Trilla was forced to join the Inquisitors and indoctrinated to hate the Jedi because she felt betrayed.
She was weak, cracked in an Imperial torture chair, surrendered the location of her naive Padawan. They would never have found me.
If it wasn't for her, she betrayed me.
Reva, on the other hand, after surviving Order 66 and watching all of her friends and Jedi Masters die and genocided, actively chose to join the Inquisitors and actively hate and hunt the Jedi for the people that ruined her life.
You came to us from the gutter.
Do you see why one character makes sense and the other does not? Just for the record though, Reva isn't the only time the Obi Wan Kenobi series ripped off Jedi Fallen Order, because the writers were so creatively bankrupt they had to resort to ripping off a fucking video game made by another company that made a Jedi adventure story far better than anything that has come out from Disney Star Wars since 2012. Including Obi-Wan cutting himself off from the Force and having to relearn to use it, despite the fact that he still has to, train Luke Skywalker. See, this plot point made sense for Cal Kestis, because all he had to do was hide and survive. Not so much for Obi-Wan, who had an entire mission that explicitly involved the Force. Also, like Cal Kestis, Obi-Wan first outs himself as a Jedi by using the Force to save someone from falling.
I can't hold on!
Bro! No!
What was that back there? Was that you? That was the Force, wasn't it?
Just forget what you saw, okay? Please trust me.
I've seen the stories. I've heard it. There's bounties out on people like
you. I know.
No!
Are you alright?
You really are a Jedi.
Oh, so that's why they specifically had Genius Leia run off a fucking building to her death. So much for being smarter than your average 10-year-old, I guess, as she was initially depicted.
You think the less you say, the less you give away. But really, it's the opposite.
How old are you?
10.
You don't sound like you're 10.
Thank you.
Also, Obi-Wan infiltrates the same Inquisitor base that Cal Kestis does via an underwater entrance. Bear in mind, timeline-wise, this would have happened 5 years after Jedi Fallen Order. You'd figured the Inquisitors would have taken steps to ensure this didn't happen again. But oh well, I guess not. The Inquisitors are just dumb fucks, aren't they? And finally, like Cal Kestis, Obi-Wan cracks open the underwater glass with the Force in order to escape from the Empire. Granted, in the game it's a little bit different, and granted, Jedi Fallen Order itself isn't entirely original either, but I'm sure you get my point. Now, sorry for the tangent, but what do you say we get on to the next part of why Reva is terrible? She's utterly incompetent. She chops off a Tatooine local's hand for merely pointing out the fact that she has no jurisdiction in the Outer Rim because,
It's controlled by the Hutt.
She tries to kill a fleeing Jedi that the Grand Inquisitor specifically wanted to interrogate, and despite the fact that she later interrogated Tatooine locals because if it wasn't obvious enough at this point, she's hell-bent on finding Kenobi.
You still want Kenobi?
She, despite having an absolute hate boner for Jedi, doesn't kill this annoying conman Jedi wannabe who acts as if he was ripped straight from the MCU's bottom of the barrel.
Wow! What do you know?
The one time Reva could have scored points was by killing this cancerous Marvel insert, especially after he confessed that he was a Jedi, after she used Force interrogation on him and found out he was helping Obi-Wan escape. And despite the fact that she went ahead and cut off a woman's hand of her own volition because she simply pointed out the obvious, and that the last time she even saw a Jedi, she tried to kill him on sight. Despite all of this, she lets him fucking live? Of all the fucking characters she could have killed, she lets this one live.
I am Haja Estri, Jedi. You found me. You're as good as they say.
Kill him.
Get out of my face.
What's the bounty on me now? 1 million? 2 million?
Kill him now.
Doesn't matter because you will not get it.
You're no Jedi, but you know where one is.
What did you ask? You know what? I'm not gonna answer it.
I don't need you to.
Okay, kill him!
God fucking damn it!
Just, wow. What a joke. And unfortunately, I'm only getting warmed up on this character's fuck-ups. After tracking Kenobi to the ship port, the Grand Inquisitor opts to finish him off himself. They had Kenobi, but then she double-crosses and kills the Grand Inquisitor, or so we thought, and as a result of this, she allows Obi Wan to escape. Her reasoning?
Really think I'd let you take all the credit?
24 hours later.
You want to take the credit, you go right ahead.
On top of that, she yells at the escaping vessel like a cartoon villain who was just thwarted.
Can't find Obi-Wan! You can't escape him! We will find you! We will destroy you!
It's like she's fucking 5!
Well, I guess we know now why they call her Reva. Skipping to episode 4, she has Princess Leia, a 10-year-old, who has vital information about the rebels, and honestly, I laughed so hard at this. To prolong this shitfuck of a series even further, Reva fails to use Force interrogation on a child. Earlier, she just forgot to do it to Owen because plot, and she managed to successfully interrogate a con man whose livelihood is dependent on being deceptive. But Reva can't successfully interrogate a 10-year-old child? Fucking what?
It's the sister contest.
You're strong.
One of these days, you idiots are gonna laugh yourselves to death!
Representation, everyone. And finally, and possibly most hilariously, Reva, a trained Inquisitor wielding a motherfucking lightsaber, fails to kill 2 farmers who have scarcely even held a blaster before, and fails to kill a fleeing farm boy, despite the series making it abundantly fucking clear that she hates Jedi and will kill them on sight, and most importantly, this series shows us why she hates Jedi. And that Reva, above all else, hates Darth Vader. Much like the incompetence of Reva letting Kenobi escape the Inquisitor base, the show tries to save her a bit of face by claiming it was all part of the plan, despite there being no way that that could have been the fucking case.
I put a tracker on the ship. Soon the location of the network and Kenobi will...
The show also tries to backtrack by claiming this incompetence was all part of an arc that Reva supposedly had, which they took no time to develop or even set up, when in actuality, this arc, if you want to call it that, wasn't developed by the writers. It was shoehorned in at the last moment because it was dictated by canon that Luke Skywalker cannot die, meaning her entire existence in the last episode of Kenobi amounts to approximately nothing because she's utterly incompetent, thus it was a complete waste of time. The only time when Reva was actually somewhat competent, despite being completely insubordinate, was when she used bounty hunters to help her flush out Obi-Wan, if I'm being fair, but beyond that, the only other time she's competent is when the plot dictates it by feeding her ridiculously contrived info from the Jedi archives, allowing her to see into the future and plant a mind control device on Leia's droid that she didn't even know Leia had at the time, and without Leia seeing it, despite Reva being right in front of her. And let's not forget teleportation. Whether it's teleporting in front of Leia down a one-way tunnel to cut off her only means of escape, despite Leia having a ridiculous head start, and the fact that she didn't run into Tala, who retreated back down the same one-way tunnel towards the end that Reva was waiting. and most unforgivably, teleporting Reva across the fucking galaxy to Tatooine despite just having her innards melted by a fucking lightsaber stab and receiving no medical attention for it whatsoever. And of course, most importantly, without a fucking ship. Plot competence, everyone. Isn't it fucking grand? Anyway, let's move on to the next topic. Plot armor. Dear God, has there ever been a character in Star Wars or Star Wars fanfiction with more plot armor than Reva the third fucking sister? She is kept alive and relevant through sheer, outrageously contrived bullshit. She also just knows things, like the fact that it's Owen who has knowledge of a Jedi's whereabouts, just so the plot can progress. She just survives things, like several warnings from Vader that he won't tolerate her incompetence anymore, but of course, he does, even though he'd snap your neck if you even failed him once. Hell, she even survives a duel with Vader, who wants her dead, who impaled her through the chest with a lightsaber, has no reason to keep her alive, but he doesn't finish her off, and she just survives through sheer political correctness and butt fucking nothing else.
Did you really believe I did not see it? You are of no further use.
Do what must be done, Lord Vader.
We will leave you where we found you, in the gutter where you belong.
Do not hesitate, show no mercy.
Also, she just brainwashes things like Leia's droid with a restraining bolt, which is not meant to work that way, mind you. And she does this not even knowing Leia even had a droid at the time when she started interrogating her, despite the fact that she just sucks at interrogating. And she brainwashes the droid and puts a tracker on it, not even planning for Leia to even escape in the first place. But that's not the worst of her plot armor. The fact that she survived Order 66, despite the fact that Anakin gave her a death stare that would make Homelander shit his pants, somehow she avoided his rampage, opting to instead play dead among the bodies, and somehow Anakin doesn't censor before he leaves. I guess the Chosen One's ridiculously gifted force powers are no match for color and whammon privilege, which apparently gives your body super ultra lightsaber death immunity abilities as well, because later on in the series, Reva gets stabbed the same way Qui-Gon fucking Jinn did, except this time, it was methodically by Vader, and should have been fatal, but much like Fennec from The Mandalorian, she somehow whammonizes her way out of that death as well, and teleports to Tatooine without even seeing a fucking doctor! Jesus Christ. Finally, we got to talk about what is, in my opinion, the most important reason why Reva is the worst Star Wars or Star Wars fanfiction character that has yet to exist for the IP. And that is why she was created, and the forced diversity element that went into this character's creation, in addition to being an embarrassing villain, a piss-poorly developed character with a contradictory backstory and one of the most insufferable personalities in Star Wars fanfiction to date. Here is the biggest difference between a character like Rey and a character like Reva. Reva was created solely to be a lightning rod for fan backlash, so she could be used for race baiting and sympathy reviews by the mainstream garbage-shilling masses. She was manufactured as a forced insert for a show and story that had nothing to do with her. She was shoved in your face and you were just expected to deal with it as her story agonizingly unfolded. If you could even call it a story, and not just a simple bait and switch. But Lucasfilm aren't so ignorant as to actually have believed that this character wasn't going to receive backlash, because of course she was going to, for merely existing where she was never meant to. Sure, it doesn't help that they wrote her like absolute shit, but the fact remains that they always intended to play the race card when Star Wars fans rightfully gave them the middle finger for, once again, trying to place an emphasis on yet another token character they cooked up solely for diversity and representation purposes, but the backlash never had anything to do with race. Fans simply wanted an Obi Wan show about Obi Wan Kenobi. Wow, what monsters, how dare they? But Lucasfilm immediately fell back on their safety net, exploiting the actress's race to once again demonize the fans for shitting on their creativity and using the mainstream media to once again gain sympathy and glowing reviews for their shitty fucking product. To put it quite simply, the big differences between Rey and Reva is this. Rey was created to be liked and was a gigantic misfire because her character and story was a complete dumpster fire that destroyed the legacy of Star Wars going forward, but at least Rey actually belonged in her own trilogy. Reva, on the other hand, was created to be hated. And I'd wager my last damn dollar that Lucasfilm were counting on it, in fact. She was created to be hated, and unlike Rey, didn't belong in this story and only helped to serve the purpose of completely fucking up George Lucas's space saga continuity, which had been established for over 40 years. And for those of you Disnoid apologizers out there, you can spin it any way you like, pretending that this show supposedly completes George's vision and solved continuity problems that were never fucking present in the first place. But I can assure you it's exactly the opposite. The Kenobi series was nothing but fanfiction. Terrible fanfiction, in fact. And Reva was the worst part of it. So let's quickly review why Reva is the worst Star Wars fanfiction character to date. The tag-along trope, no reason to exist, motivations that contradict her backstory, a backstory that damages legacy characters and OG Star Wars canon. She's painted as the righteous one in her collective, despite the fact that her superiors are correct and she is in fact the incompetent one. She possesses a rank and standing in a collective based on order and stability, despite being both incompetent and completely insubordinate at every turn. She has powers that break the universe given her character and the current point within the Star Wars timeline that Kenobi takes place within the saga. She has some of the most insane plot armor I've ever seen in both her plot-driven ability capabilities as a character and her plot-driven survival capabilities as a character that only serves as both a middle finger to the audience and a mockery to other much beloved and revered characters in the franchise. Reva was primarily created to be a race bait lightning rod, to once again paint Star Wars fans as the villain, and to once again stir up a false media train of undeserved sympathy and praise for Lucasfilm's shitty fucking show. And finally, unlike the rest of the horrible characters I've mentioned, with the exception of Rey, we don't have to endure over 4 hours of any of them. And at least for all of her countless character problems and writing atrocities related to her character, at least Rey actually belonged in her trilogy, despite how poorly done it was. Reva was an uninvited guest who stuck around in a show she didn't belong in for 6 whole fucking episodes and over 4 fucking hours of having to listen to her being the human equivalent of nails on a chalkboard for an Obi Wan Kenobi show. That is the clincher right there. That among all the other reasons I've listed why Reva is the worst Star Wars character, or in this case, worst Star Wars fanfiction character to date, Rose Tico, Admiral Holdo, and L337 were all short-lived abominations. Reva was 4 fucking hours of agony to sit through. Now, I know some of you already agreed with my stance on Reva as a character, but for those of you who initially disagreed, well, maybe this video has made you reevaluate your perspective on this particular topic. Once again, trust me, I know, Rey, Rose, L337, Holdo, and Kylo all suck. And as a lovely viewer wrote on the poll I put out, it's a very tight race to the bottom. But Reva, in my reevaluated opinion, is the worst Star Wars and Star Wars fanfiction character to date. Well, at least so far. Remember, it can always get worse.
The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist!
Anyway, guys, that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and while you do that, I'm going to go ahead and give my trusty outro. Firstly, a special thank you to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members for supporting the channel and all of their contributions. I really appreciate it. I've left the link to Patreon below if you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, or if you'd like to become a YouTube member, just click the join button below. Also, you can feel free to join my Discord if you want to chat to my community about Star Wars, the MCU, Disney, the movie industry in general, and plenty of other topics as well. I've left a link in the description. Check it out at your leisure, and who knows, maybe you'll make some friends along the way. A special thank you to A British Potato for helping me with the audio editing for this video. I've left a link to his channel below. Check him out. He makes great content. And finally, here's one last thank you for staying till the end of the video. You are a legend, and I'll see you next time.